Hello everyone, it's Gigabeef here, and the day has finally come. We are looking at patch 14 and the notes that have come out onto the official forum. So let's have a look and start from the beginning with the new content. So to start with, we have Ground Zero. The Ground Zero location, situated in the city centre of Tarkov, has been added to the game. The location features a large number of infrastructure facilities of the modern city: banks, cafes, restaurants, stores, pharmacies, and so on. All this is towered by the skyscrapers of Tarkov. In the very center of the location is the main Russian branch of the offices of Terror Group, where the original conflict began. The most violent clashes between USEC PMC operatives and OMON took place on the facility's premises. So this is the beginning. I guess this is why it's called Ground Zero, because it's the start of the whole conflict. So important information about this place: the location is intended for beginner players from level 1 to 20. I think this is maybe a mistake, because unless they change the flea to 20, which I don't think they have after scanning through, then it means that players with 5 levels worth of flea market are going to be able to come back and play on this map, which is intended for new players. Which I don't think is a good idea, because it's a very different experience pre-flea as it is post-flea, as I'm sure all of you who've played a wipe before will know. PMCs of higher levels, 20 plus, will not be able to access the location, okay? Scavs will have access to the location at any player level. Another interesting choice, but I actually think that's not necessarily too bad. New starter quests have been added to the location. This is interesting because presumably they aren't going to lock anything off, because if you don't complete them by the time that you're level 20, then you're not going to be able to come back. So either they're not map specific, or they are map specific, but they don't really matter. Visual cues for new players have been added to the location. Presumably this is maybe extracts or something, I'm not really sure. Quests debut, checking, renamed background check, shortage, supplier, gunsmith part 1 have received updated text descriptions. It's interesting that this is part of the Ground Zero bullet points, so I'm not sure whether this is completely separate, they've just decided to add it here, or whether these quests are now exclusively Ground Zero quests. It's a bit of a weird place to put them there, but I guess we'll have to see when we get into the game. New boss, Kolonte. A new boss, Kolonte, has been added to the streets of Tarkov. He is a former officer of the MVD, Ministry of Internal Affairs. During his service in law enforcement, he had a reputation as a vile man whose behavior was sometimes feared by his co-workers. During his work, he often resorted to his favorite method of interrogation, a rubber baton, as well as other non-statutory pressure on someone who was not to his liking. Thanks to his physical strength and bold temperament, after the events of the Terror Group scandal, he formed a gang and began to do himself what he was supposed to combat: looting and banditry. However, even before the conflict, he often provided protection to local businessmen. For example, his good relations with Caban are well known. I mean, we've seen him in the Raid series as well, so we know that they're good friends. We thought they were brothers. Maybe they are brothers. Maybe they're just brothers in arms or something. They're good friends. Volonté has a small number of guards, prefers to stay in one position, and occasionally patrols his territory. If he feels like he has the upper hand, he might switch to his police baton, so he's got somewhat of Tagilla's AI. He lives in the area around Klimov Shopping Mall and the Tarkov Academy of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I'm not sure exactly which building this is. This sounds a little bit like that Terror Group building across the road, but I'm not sure. The Klimov, we obviously know where that is. Klimov Shopping Mall. That's the one where the rusted bloody key is, and it's the one next to the green flare extract. But this place, I'm actually not 100% sure. Caban's new guards. So Boss Caban is joined by his closest associates, Basmatch and Gus. Since the time of Caban's active involvement in business, they have served as his loyal associates, solving many delicate issues for him. Their loyal service and their exuberant character made them his most trusted confidants. In their spare time, these two dandies like to dress up at Ragman's place and organize illegal street races through the streets of Tarkov in tuned cars from Caban's dealership. The Basmatch and Gus always stay close to Caban and charge into battle for him, and they prefer their unique clothes to their battle gear, although there are occasional exceptions. Basmatch has a special fondness for machetes and Gus for crowbars, so these two sound truly pleasant. I mean, if they're not going to be wearing their battle stuff most of the time, I don't know whether they're going to have lots of health and maybe less armor. I'm not really sure. I mean, Caban's got a lot of guards anyway, so this just makes him a little bit harder to attack. Right, changing gears completely, we're onto the shoreline rework. Visually reworked most of the landscape, keeping the main points of interest intact. This is cool. This sounds like they've really done a lot here. Added a new area, a small cattle farm, which is home to smugglers and scavs. Doesn't say exactly where. Updated the light sources, optimized most of the location, completely redesigning the culling system, which is good. I mean, Shoreline never really struggled for performance, but it's good to see. Reworked location borders. Concrete fence replaced by minefields and snipers in most areas. The location is also slightly expanded in some areas. So the places with the concrete fence we were thinking before, there's all that section up around Path to Lighthouse. There's also the section down by, well, what we think is Terminal and the shipping port in the corner, although that may be its own special thing. It's hard to know, because there's a lot of concrete fencing around Shoreline. Obviously, you have the river on one side, and then on the other side, there's a lot of fencing and stuff. So I guess they've made it less of a hard border and more minefields and snipers. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't mind hard borders, like big concrete fences being there. I'm not actually that bothered about that. Just means you'll hear a lot more boom boom at the beginning of raids, which is always fun. Reworked some points of interest, including the addition of new quests and activities in several previously empty zones. This is good because, yeah, there's lots of areas of the map that people just don't really go in. Mostly the far east parts and the far west parts. People just don't really play in those areas. Some areas have been reworked to improve gameplay, added a river crossing, reworked almost all elevations and sniper positions, as well as scav areas of interest. We're going to have to figure out where the scavs go now. This river crossing, I wonder where this could be. I wonder whether this is up by... Well, there's already a bridge over by the tank. Yeah, I don't know where this could be, actually. We're going to have to see. Added more than 30 new containers and Jaeger stashes. Cool. Fixed over 1,200 visual and minor bugs. Excellent. So the next section, the new weapons, equipment, and loot. Added a number of new items, weapon modifications, equipment, and customization. I think we know all about these mostly. The 9A91, the VSK, MCX Spear, and a new caliber to Tarkov, the 6.8x51 or .22 Fury. RPD, RPDN, and updated the models and the animations for the SKS, which I don't think we actually knew about, but that's cool. So other changes and new mechanics, achievements. An achievement system has been added to the game. We saw this in the trailer or the teaser that Nikita gave previously in Tarkov TV. Players will receive achievements upon completing various objectives. Earned achievements will not be lost with the wipes, so there's something always to grind towards to get, max completion, I suppose. You can view the earned achievements on the achievements tab on the character screen. Cool. Hall of Fame. There's a new hideout zone, the Hall of Fame. This has been added to the game. The zone serves as a place where you can display mementos. For displaying the dog tags of players of the opposing faction killed by your PMC, you get a bonus to combat skills leveling. The higher the level of the eliminated player, the greater the skill bonus. This is quite fun. You can add items to your favorites, and such items will be displayed in your profile. I'm interested to see what happens with this and how easy it is to see other people's profiles, because if I do a video about a gun, I might be able to put that in my profile, and people could just go and copy it from my profile rather than having to build it themselves. Kind of nice. New hitbox and armor system. This is the one that we've all been waiting for. I don't think we're really going to find out exactly how this works from just reading it. We're going to have to play with it, but hitboxes. The head is divided into separate, simple hit zones, which coincide with the protection zones of the helmet and masks. 3 hit zones have been added to the head area: front neck, throat, back neck, and a phase collider. This is interesting. I did suspect that the neck might end up as part of the head hitbox. This has a very large ramification for which armors are good and which are not, so we're going to have to see. Thorax and stomach hit zones are divided into front, back, and sides. The pelvic hit zone is divided into front groin and back buttocks. Hits to these zones cause damage to the stomach zone. Alright, fair. Forearm hit zones have been reduced in diameter, so less armor. The death screen now shows more detailed information about the area that was fatally wounded, for example, thorax, upper back. So as for the armor itself, 37 ballistic plates have been added to the game, 7 for the chest section, 6 for the rear section, 20 universal plates for the chest and rear sections, and 4 for sides. Ballistic plates have their own parameters specific to armor: strength, material, armor damage, absorption, ricochet parameters, armor type, etc. I don't think anything has changed really here. Ballistic plates are divided into different formats depending on the size and the format of the armor, so they won't be able to go in certain armors and they will be able to go in others. Ballistic plates cannot be inserted or removed whilst wearing it. This makes it really awkward to do in raid, I think, because you have to take the armor off and then take the plate out. You have to have enough space to be able to do all these things. But yeah, you must remove the armor first. The visual appearance of a ballistic plate depends on its durability. It'll look more damaged if it's taken more damage and has lower durability, which is kind of cool. Ballistic plates can spawn in the appropriate areas and containers on location. Fine. Ballistic plates are affected by light and heavy armor skills depending on the type of the plate, and they've added separate ballistic plate zones on the character matching the location in the body armor. So the hit registration of ballistic plates of the same format have the same position in all body armor and plate carriers with slots for this plate format. So it doesn't matter which armor you put those plates in, it's the plate itself that's determining the armor coverage, which is what we would expect. The dimensions of the ballistic plate zones are the same as the average dimensions of real ballistic plates of that format. Also fine. So next we're going to see ballistic plate slots and integrated armor slots have been added to body armor vests and plate carriers. All ballistic plates of the corresponding format can be installed in the armor plate slots. The slots of some armor plates can be fitted with plates of several formats. For example, the chest section of the AN8 Tactical M2 plate carrier can be fitted with SAPI and granite format plates. So SAPI is basically the Western plates and granite is the Eastern sort of Russian type plates. This is to be expected. This is what we saw in the teaser. Every single armor has integrated armor slots that are some low level of protection, class 2 or class 3 or something, and then you have ballistic plate slots, which is the customizable part, so that's not really a big surprise. The durability of body armor has been converted to the durability of installed armor. Okay, so they've just, each armor now has it based upon the pieces of the armor that are installed in it. An armored collar that protects the neck hitbox have been added for a large number of body armors. Again, not a big surprise given the hitbox change, because this is going to be really, really important, because if you get shot in the neck, you're going to die because it's the 35 HP section and not the thorax 85 HP section. Body armor vest cost weight penalties have been adjusted. Some of the cost, weight, and penalties have been moved to ballistic plates, which again makes sense because a lot of the benefit of the armor is now in the plates and not in the actual carrier. Integrated armor slots have been added to a large number of helmets, and helmet durability has been converted to the durability of the integrated armor. So this just means that helmets now have multiple parts, and you can shoot them at the front or the back, and they have separate sections for armor. I think this will matter a lot less for helmets than it does for actual body armor. When you're shooting at helmets, most of the time it's a one shot and they're dead, and the actual durability doesn't really matter so much, whether it's full or not. So I don't think this matters too much. This actually is kind of a buff to helmets, because it means that you can have full durability in a different section after getting hit in another section. So you can have the front section of the helmet still be 100, while the back section is now half because it got shot. So you technically have more of your helmet that's at 100% than you did before. So it's kind of a helmet buff, maybe. It depends on where you get hit. Integrated armor in body armor and helmets. This is the base low-level class protection that we were talking about. The protection of armor and helmets is divided into separate zones, depending on which section this zone protects, and sometimes several zones. There are the slots with integrated armor. Integrated armor zones have their own separate durability. For example, you can now reduce your opponent's chest zone armor durability and not damage the durability of the other armor zones if you shoot them in the chest. Which is really cool. This is especially good for armor with arms protection, because arms protection will now not damage the overall durability of the vest, and it'll only damage the arms bit. This is really, really good for things like the Osprey, which I was using a lot actually at the end of last wipe. This makes that become a lot better. In the inspection window, you can see exactly which areas of the vest or helmet are protected and what the durability rating is. Integrated armor cannot be removed or replaced. No. Each integrated armor has its own armor-specific settings. Durability, material, armor damage, we know all this stuff already. Integrated armor is affected by light and heavy as well, and the damage parameter on various armor materials has been adjusted to reflect the new durability values. We're gonna have to see what this means. This sounds like maybe the destructibility table has changed, but we'll have to figure that out once the game is actually live. So the one thing that I was worried about this system in general was it seemed like durability might just be lower in general across the board, and if you get shot multiple times in the same place, say with a Zabralo, you just have less durability than you would have previously, because in the past, the entire armor was protecting you from every angle, whereas now it's only the individual piece that's protecting you from that particular side. So it makes TTK even lower than it is now for most armors, but we're going to have to see. Repairs. When repairing body armor, the durability is distributed according to the following priorities: the ballistic plates, chest, back and sides, then the integrated armor, chest, collar, back, pelvis, sides, other. So this is, if you just go and like right click repair on the whole armor, then it'll prioritize it based on plates first and then integrated second. You can also repair ballistic plates as separate items, which is fine, that's fair enough. When repairing helmets, durability is distributed according to the following priorities: integrated armor, because I think it's all integrated armor for helmets. Face, top, eyes, jaws, back of head, ears, others. The only thing that's going to change about this is something like a slap plate or whatever. Integrated armor can receive an enhancement when it's repaired. Chances for armor to receive common and rare enhancements whilst being repaired have been increased. So, I mean, this feature was really not used particularly. People kind of rushed to it 2 wipes ago to test it out, and it was okay, but just not really worth bothering with. So most people kind of gave up on it. So it's good to see the chances for this increased if they want people to actually use it. On the interface, you can now see the durability of different armor zones and ballistic plates by hovering over the durability digit of a vest or a helmet. So now where it says, it'll say a much higher number now because there's lots of armor pieces within the particular piece of armor. So it'll say like 240 out of 240. So now if you hover over that digit, that's then going to show you the durability of all of the different areas inside. This also works for flea market offers, which is good. You can see brief information about the presence and quantity of ballistic plates in the posted flea market offers. Slots for ballistic plates and integrated armor, if a vest has them, have been added to the vest and helmet inspector screens. The order of the slots is always the same. Armor class is now displayed with a Roman numeral icon on the ballistic plate icon and in the armor class list. So we saw this as well in the trailers. This is going to take a second to get used to, but it's really no big deal. Flea market and trading. The flea market ban has been removed from a large number of body armors. Ballistic plates of protections classes 5 and 6 cannot be sold on the flea market. Ballistic plates have been added to the inventory of various traders. So you're going to be able to buy ballistic plates from the traders. 5 and 6 plates will not be sold on the flea, which is fine, but I'm presuming they're going to be sold on the traders a little bit like they are now. And it makes sense that the flea market ban has been removed from a lot of the body armors, because most of the body armors in the game are now going to determine whether they're good or not by the actual armor coverage, which armor plates they can actually take, and the base protection. But I very much doubt if the base protection on any of these things is going to be more than 3. So all of the old ones that just couldn't be sold anymore, like the A18 and things like that, they're no longer as valuable because they're not class 4 anymore, because you need a plate in them, and they'll come presumably without a plate, and so now you can sell them on the flea market, which is, it makes total sense to me. Right, moving on, vaulting and obstacle interaction. The obstacle vaulting has been added to the game. There are 2 types of vaulting: climbing on the obstacle and remaining on it, for example, climbing a crate to fire at the enemy from the top, or vaulting over an obstacle, for example, jumping over a small fence to take a shortcut. Each of these types has different animations for different heights, different parameters of stamina and arm stamina consumption, and different action speeds depending on the negative effects. During a sprint, you can jump over obstacles without the goal of climbing on them, i.e. to vault. If vaulting is performed whilst walking, the loudness of such actions will be noticeably lower than jumping and sprinting, which is good. For the convenience of overcoming obstacles, an option has been added to the game settings, vaulting over medium obstacles, where you can choose auto or hotkey. If you select auto, your character will climb over medium and low height obstacles by himself. If you select hotkey, you will need to press the jump key to initiate vaulting, but this way you can control the character's actions more precisely. We're going to have to fiddle around with this because it's really going to depend exactly on how it's implemented. Because you wouldn't want to not be vaulting over tiny little sticks and having to press space all the time or whatever key that you choose. But again, having to do it manually could also be annoying in some other situations. The character now stops if he hits a wall while walking or sprinting. I think this is to prevent what some of the Shift W guys used to do, which is sprint into a wall and then move through an opening like a doorway or something. Because what you could do is you could build up momentum sprinting at the wall directly, and then you could swing a corner or go around some, through a doorway or around a corner, and you'd then have like maximum speed without any charge up time, so to speak. So this probably stops that. Whether it ends up feeling really clunky, I don't know, but I think that's what that's to counter. Shoulder transition. The ability to move firearms from the right shoulder to the left shoulder and back has been added to the game. This can be useful if you want to fire from the left side whilst behind cover. We need to have a look and see exactly what it looks like from a third-party perspective, but shoulder transition is available during walking, crouching, leaning, and other actions. Shoulder transition is not available whilst prone and overhead and side blind firing. I mean, that's very niche, so fine. Positioning the weapon on the left shoulder imposes a penalty. The weapon has additional sway when moving, which should be better than not being able to left side peek if you're trying to go around that way versus right. So hopefully it won't be too bad. Control settings. Warning, all control settings have been reset to default. So what I would advise is going into your app data and going into the Battle State Games folder and finding controls.ini and maybe copying it and putting it somewhere else, because if you don't do that, then you're not going to remember what you had previously, and we're going to have to rebind all of these things. I'm going to spend a long time in these controls, probably fixing everything, because I have quite customized controls in Tarkov, so yeah, we're going to have to spend some time doing that. Added shoulder transition action. Default is mouse 4. Probably no one's ever going to use that. You're going to change it to something else. Added the vaulting action. The default key is space and the press type is continuous. The jump action has been reassigned to the spacebar key with the release press type. Try these control settings in game before changing them. So what they've done is if you press space, you will vault. But then if there's nothing to vault on, when you let go of space, your character will then jump. I'm not sure if I like that. I still think I'd probably rather have them on two separate keys, because I feel like I either want to vault or jump, not both. I don't want to, if I haven't vaulted, I don't really want to jump afterwards. So I'll probably change it. I don't know exactly what to yet. Maybe I'll put jump on just normal space and then vault on control space or something. It depends on how often we have to use the vault key. I'm going to try, as it says, I'm probably going to try it out and then change it afterwards if I'm not happy with it. But if this control set works, then I'll keep it. Preset ammo loading. So we already could do this with the presets before, but it was a little bit clunky. So now you can save settings, presets for loading ammunition into magazines sequentially, as well as quickly loading mags using these presets. Players can name each preset, select the appropriate loading preset, view its contents, and compare it to other loading presets. The magazine loading preset is divided into 3 blocks. Top, how many and which cartridges will be at the top of the magazine, i.e. which cartridges will be first. Loop, how many and which cartridges will be cycled into the magazine or belt. And bottom, how many and which cartridges will be at the bottom of the magazine or belt, i.e. which cartridges will be last. This confused me at first, but I think what this means is, so loop is the pattern. So loop is kind of what everybody was expecting in terms of ammo loading. So imagine you want to go 1 Quake Maker, 1 Rip. That would be loop from top to bottom. So it'll be 1 Quake, 1 Rip, 1 Quake, 1 Rip. What top and bottom lets you do is, I mean, I'm guessing here, but it really does sound like it. Top is going to allow you to put in high pen rounds at the beginning, say like 3 or 4, or something with low recoil. Imagine if you're using 7M40. So you could put 7M40 in the top, like 3 or 4 bullets, and then you have your continuous pattern. Again, we're not going to use RIP for this one, but say you've got 7M40 at the top, and then you want to, for some reason, you want to do BS and a Golnik, and you go BS, a Golnik, BS, a Golnik, blah, blah, blah. And then you get to the bottom, and then the bottom 3, or however many that you specify, you'll be able to put in, say, BT. So you've got a tracer there, so you know that you're at the end of the mag. Some people like to do that stuff, so it looks like we've got full controls to be able to do top, bottom, and then some pattern in the center, which I think is cool. You can create up to 30 unique magazine loading presets with a limit of 5 presets per caliber. I wonder why the limit is the case, but... New recoil mechanics. The recoil mechanic has been improved to make it more realistic and comfortable for players. A special emphasis has been placed on improving the feel of semi-auto and short burst shooting, which we've been asking for ages, because this is all about the initial recoil on the first couple of bullets. New recall mechanic now includes a variety of flexible settings, allowing for balance adjustments based on analytical data and player feedback. All weapon recall parameters have been rebalanced. This is going to take a while for us to get our head around, so we're going to have to play with it, but I'm optimistic. Lightkeeper services. After completing certain Lightkeeper quests, you'll be able to unlock the following services. Nikita touched on this in Tarkov TV, but this is a bit more info. Sacred Amulet service. Lightkeeper gives the character the item Sacred Amulet. While the character is wearing the amulet, all cultists on location do not attack you unless provoked. So you can still attack them and get aggro back, but this prevents you from getting killed by them while you're just walking around. Rogue Support Service. When a player purchases this service, in that raid, rogues will not attack the player who ordered the service regardless of their faction. In addition, rogues will provide fire support by attacking targets that the player who purchased this service has directed their attention to. And Zerachi Support Service. When player buys this service, in that raid, Zerachi will support the player by firing at targets the player is attacking. I'm kind of intrigued as to how we actually order these. Do we have to go to Lightkeeper? Do these only work on Lighthouse itself? The Sacred Amulet, obviously you could take to another map, but does Rogue Support and Zerachi Support only work on Lighthouse? Because otherwise, how are we actually going to activate the purchase? If Lightkeeper's on Lighthouse, we have to go and see him first. I'm not sure. Something different, the weapon rack. Now you can add the displayed weapon to your favorites. This weapon will be displayed into your profile, which is cool, and viewable profiles have also been activated, so the ability to view another player's profile page. In the player's profile, you can view gear equipped by the player, brief statistics, rare achievements earned, favorite weapons displayed in the weapon rack, and favorite items displayed in the Hall of Fame. Player profiles can be viewed on any screen of the game, including the raid exit screen after dying to another player. This is kind of interesting because you'll be able to look at some brief statistics as the person that killed you. So you'll be able to figure out, maybe it'll give you a little bit more insight into whether somebody is cheating or not. An interesting one. Adjusted the peaceful and combat behavior of AI when moving from one area to another within one location. So we'll see how that feels. And then there's some balancing changes to trading. Change the trader prices and availability of ammunition. I mean, this is a lot of different ammos. 5.56, 5.45. Basically all the ammos. I don't know if there's anything excluded from here. It doesn't look, maybe there's a lot of shotgun stuff. Oh no, 1270. I don't really know. So we're going to have to see about that. Change the trader prices and availability of armor on all loyalty levels, but that makes sense because of the armor rework. And adjusted the various trade offers and barters of weapon attachments and other items. So again, we'll just have to see how that has been done. Balancing changes to quests. Expanded quest rewards. You will now be rewarded more often with unlocking previously unavailable trade offers, barters, ammo, and armor crafting recipes. Interesting, so maybe they've added a load more armor crafts to the hideout. And the same with ammo too. Change the order of skier quests between Friend from the West Part 2 and Setup. New order is Friend from the West Part 2, then Setup, then Informed means Armed, then Chumming, then Bullshit, and then Silent Caliber. I think this is cool because it stops you having to use shotguns like a billion quests in a row, which is quite good. And they've also changed the quest objectives for the Punisher Part 2, the Punisher Part 4, and the Tarkov Shooter Part 4 as well, which is intriguing. Tarkov Shooter Part 4 is the one where you have to get to Sniper Skill 3, which is one of my least favorite quests, so that's interesting. And then Punisher Part 2, you have to kill scavs with suppressed weapons on Shoreline, and Punisher Part 4, you have to kill PMCs with the scav vest and a balaclava on Shoreline as well. So I don't really know what has happened to this though. Maybe they've opened out the quest a little bit more, which would be kind of interesting because people really do not like going to Shoreline so much. Maybe they will after the rework, who knows? But they don't like going to Shoreline so much over and over again. So I think this kind of should alleviate that if that's what they've done. Balancing changes to crafts. Adjusted armor crafts. Now to make an armor vest, you need to find a set of fabrics and a ballistic plate that fits the form factor. I have to see what that means, but it looks like you need to find some more specific stuff to be able to make a particular piece of armor. And yeah, maybe you can make lots more armors in the hideout now. Adjusted ammo crafts reduce the production time and the cost of cheap ammunition. I think this makes sense. There's lots of SMG ammos that really could have done with the reduction in cost because people just don't really make them. Things like SS190. Sometimes people were making 45 AP, but other ammunition like BT for the SR2M, people just weren't really making that stuff. Balancing changes, the damage and armor penetration parameters of different calibers of ammunition have been revised and adjusted, so I'm going to be delving into that when the information becomes available. Balancing changes to muzzle devices. The muzzle devices have been rebalanced. Suppressors, muzzle adapters, flash hiders, and compensators. This is interesting because previously we've seen that suppressors in combos have always been the best, so maybe this has been shaken up now. The BTR. A BTR 82A has been added to the streets of Tarkov, traveling between different stop points in the city. The BTR driver offers various services to his passengers. Taxi service. The player can travel to any available point in the city in total safety. Well, we know that they're not adding RPGs. At least Nice Guy said they won't. So you can just move in total safety because no one could blow you up. Move items to stash service. The player can send items to the stash with the status found in raid. This is really valuable. The service is only available for PMCs. Covering fire. The player can order covering fire with the help of the BTR weaponry, which provides the safest possible drop-off at the stopping point. The service is only available after purchasing the taxi service, and this service is only available for PMCs. It's kind of interesting. You're already traveling basically with complete protection, but this also lets you like blow stuff up on the way. We're going to have to see how that works because I'm interested. List of the stopping points on the streets of Tarkov. So you can stop at the Pinewood Hotel, the Rodina Cinema, the Collapsed Crane, the Cardinal Apartment Complex, the Tram, and the City Centre. The BTR is neutral to all players unless a player starts attacking it first, so you can actually just avoid the BTR. It doesn't look like it's going to shoot you unless somebody has purchased the covering fire thing. If someone purchases covering fire, the BTR does become hostile. When the service ends, the BTR becomes neutral to all players again, so you just have to hide. The cost of the service depends on the faction, bear, USEC Scav, Scav Karma, Charisma skill level, and travel distance. Interesting. Quality of life. The visual effect of painkillers has been changed. I am looking forward to seeing this one. The door to the expanded part of the hideout is now always open after construction, so you don't have to open it to go to the gym. Change the camera system in the hideout from railed to free camera. To move in space, WASD, to rotate the camera, hold middle mouse button plus mouse movement, and to zoom the camera scroll wheel. This is because they've been adding more modules, right? We've got the Hall of Fame as well now. Having it just like cycle round on those rails doesn't really make sense. The hideout's becoming much more of a square rather than the sort of long L shape. Interesting to see. And then a bunch of other stuff. Several visual bugs on streets of Tarkov and on Shoreline, incorrect spawn points of containers, fixed a problem that led to a lack of damage registration from melee weapons, incorrect behavior of the rogues when attacking the hangar buildings on Lighthouse, an issue where killed bots will remain standing, a lack of muzzle flash when looking at a shooting player, AI behavior when interacting with stationary weapons, incorrect values of some parameters in character statistics, incorrect camera behavior in the hideout when scrolling in UI elements, fixed several compatibility issues with weapon attachments, and the ability to hear outdoor sounds whilst inside the bunker on reserve. There you have it. There's the full patch notes. A lot of the ramifications of some of this stuff we're going to just have to play with and see in game. The game is going to be technically down from 7, so 2.5 hours ago, until 1 p.m. for me. So that's technically from 1 p.m. UK time, 8 a.m. Eastern time. That's when the game is intended to be live. I will be going live as soon as the game is actually up. I don't want to sit there just in case beforehand because I've done that previously and ended up sitting there with the stream for 2 hours not being able to play. At least you can go and play Arena now if you have access, which I don't think everybody still does yet, which is still frustrating. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to all this stuff. I think it's going to be great. So best of luck in your wipe and have fun in your raids.